Opara, Taldor, spring of 4718. The Senate floor, a killing field. Masked assassins wearing black were cutting their way through the senators and the other areas of the floor. Some of the senators, especially the powerful Grand Dukes and Grand Duchesses, had begun to activate contingency magics and were teleporting away. Elsewhere, the senators and their aides were taking up arms against the assassins. But it was difficult. The assassins had the advantage of shock and awe, as well as coordination. Of Martella's group of conspirators, Demi had been the first to react. She had recognized Cathan Zalar, who had at first seemed to be a guard friend of Martella's, but had revealed herself to be a member of the Lion Blades, and she had managed to acquire a shortbow from her ally. Demi was taking well-aimed but rapid shots from her bow at the assassins, as they gored their way through the hapless senators and aides of the floor. She caught one assassin in the shoulder and pinned him to a back wall. With a grimace, he pulled himself away from the wall and threw a sharp knife at Demi. It seemed to catch her in the shoulder. Then suddenly, she was gone. Aurelius looked around in a panic. What the heck? Did anyone see Demi? It looks like she just up and vanished. Well, they're close now, my friend, said Diyanah. Ready yourself for a fight. No, I think I'd rather not, said Aurelius. Remember, I'll be the one with a yellow mask over my face, okay? And he cast an illusion spell, suddenly being replaced by a black-garbed assassin, calculating it was safer to appear as an assailant than as anything else right now. Indeed, the assassins ignored Aurelius, giving him the opportunity to soak in the full extent of the bloodbath. At the other end of the hall, Aurelius had to admit that the four ladies, Martella, Princess Eutropia, Gloriana, and the lion blade Cathan, were handling themselves remarkably well. So too were Diyanah and Marius, whose fighting styles, Irori monk-trained martial arts and street-trained bare-knuckle brawling respectively, were similar in both their effectiveness and in the fact that they didn't need weapons at hand to overpower even armed foes. In rapid succession they knocked out 2, then 3, then 4 of the assassins without taking a blow, but they were getting lucky, and soon enough they were getting outflanked and surrounded, forced back to back. Diyanah caught the first hit, a short sword cut to the calf. Suddenly he vanished. Marius turned around in a fright. "Where'd my cover go?" he asked, only to be stabbed in the back by a black-robed assassin. He vanished as well. Then Aurelius noticed something. 2 things, actually. First, that the assassins seemed genuinely surprised at their disappearance, so it was clearly not something that they were doing. And second, that a quick spellcraft study of the area they had vacated revealed traces of translocation magic. They had been teleported away after being injured. "It's the pins!" realized Aurelius. He messaged Martella. "Martella, the Voritas family, they were rich, and they were good arcanists, right?" he asked. "Where's everyone gone, Aurelius?" she asked through bouts of combat. "I don't see any of you." "That's what I'm saying. The aid badges have contingency magic. Yours probably does too. If you get injured, you'll be teleported out of the building." "Damn it, I can't leave Eutropia. Aurelius, I'm taking off my badge now. But I'll be in touch as soon as we're safe." Aurelius could see Martella unpin the badge and slip it into her pocket. He glanced around. It was still chaos, and most of the remaining senators were dying. 2 senators in particular caught his eye. First, he could see Grand Duke Avernathus, who had fallen to the floor and looked like he was going to be crushed by the press of bodies. Second, he could see Duke Leonardo Centimus, who was trapped in his wheelchair and unable to make an effective exit. He realized that either one of these 2, left in the Senate room, would end up dead. He had to make a choice. He could only help one. It was Avernathus that had taken a chance on an exiled, disgraced noble and brought him back to Taldor, regardless of his complicated past. He scuttled through the maze, avoiding the attacks of friendlies who saw him as an assassin, and found Avernathus. "I sure hope this works," he said, and he held on to the aid badge tightly and jabbed the pointy end directly into Avernathus's shoulder. He had understood the trigger magic correctly. With the metal connected to both of them, they were both teleported out of the room. With a soft thud, they landed in a pitch-black room. It was so dark, he couldn't see his own hand in front of his face. Is that you, Aurelius?" asked a voice in the dark that was clearly Diyanah's. "Yeah, and I've got a friend. Give me a minute." Then he waved his fingers, and a soft light illuminated the room from the ceiling. Faded wallpaper lined the walls of a large square room. 6 beds lined the western wall, each pristinely made, but caked in a thick layer of dust. 8 closed wooden lockers lined the northeastern corner of the room. 3 doors could be seen as well. 2 were closed, one to the north and one to the east, and a third door hung ajar, revealing a small lavatory behind it. Marius and Diyanah were sat on the floor, not far from Aurelius. Grand Duke Avernathus was unconscious beside him as well, but still breathing and thankfully looking alive. Demi was on her feet already, inspecting a panel of brass and green glass along the wall between the beds and the lavatory. "Anything interesting?" asked Aurelius, getting to his feet. "Yes," said Demi. "This looks to be pre-Taldan, maybe Aslanti, not the room, the device, rather. I think it's a control module for a galvanic lamp." She slid her hands up and down the device, but it didn't seem to do anything. "Perhaps broken," she observed. "You know about galvanic systems?" asked Aurelius. "My people were experts in this kind of science," she said. "Or my ancestors, you might call them, I guess." "Are you ever going to tell us where you're actually from, Demi?" asked Aurelius. "Maybe someday. No time now, though. We've got to get out of here. Any idea where we've ended up?" "If I had to guess," said Aurelius, "I'd say we're in the House Voritas safe room, wherever that is. I did some research after Martella gave us the aid badges. House Voritas rose to prominence during the chaos of the Shining Crusade. Back then there was this omnipresent threat of assassins that came from not only political rivals, but also the whispering tyrant loyalists. The Voritas family likely recognized the need to be able to whisk their agents away at a moment's notice in case of a serious threat to the Senate. So this looks like a servant's quarter, maybe, I'd say." "What about Martella and the princess?" asked Marius. "Last I saw, they were fighting the assassins," said Aurelius. "I told Martella she could teleport herself to safety using the pin, but she didn't want to leave the princess's side. Actually, she removed her pin to avoid inadvertently getting separated from her, so I guess we're on our own for a while." "Shall we try one of the doors?" "In just a minute," said Demi, and she leaned over the Grand Duke Avernathus and cast a healing spell that stitched up the bloody gash on his forehead. The old man drew in a sharp breath. Aurelius helped him to his feet. "Aurelius, my boy," said the old man, "you have saved my life. I will never be able to repay such a debt." "Well, don't thank me just yet. We're in some creepy old safe house that hasn't been used in 100 years. "I knew when we first spoke you'd prove to be an invaluable pupil, and now you have shown your quality, the very highest." "Thanks, Avernathus. Now rest. You still look a little woozy to me," said Aurelius. "You got any more of that magic healing in you?" asked Aurelius of Demi. Demi shook her head. "Sorry, I used magic to put Trant and her goons to sleep. Magic to heal Marius from the bees. Magic to heal the Grand Duke here. I'm all tapped out. I can offer you my charm and this nifty short bow Katheer gave me, but that's it from here on out." "Okay, let's just be careful then. All of you have been stabbed at least once, and we're all out of healing magic. Let's tread careful." Diyanah tried the northern door. Beyond it, a wide corridor, decorated with painted frescoes along the walls, featuring various moments in pre-Shining Crusade Taldan history. At the end of the corridor was another door that led into what appeared to be a small social room. The room was illuminated by a galvanic lamp shining overhead. "Huh," said Demi. "Give me a minute." She darted back to the first room and fiddled with a panel. The light went out and went back on again in the second room. "I guess the switch here controls the light in the other room. Weird," she mused. The others, meanwhile, had already begun exploring the social room. A wooden counter jutted from the northwestern corner of the room. Open cabinets of dusty liquor bottles stood behind the bar, while one cabinet remained tightly sealed with a visible lock. 3 tables with adjacent chairs filled much of the room. Here, just as it was in the corridor, portraits of posing nobles and historical scenes adorned the walls, all faded with age. In addition to the door that they had come in from, another door led to the west. Marius went behind the bar and pulled out 2 bottles of whiskey. "Hey, look here," he pointed out, "sealed with wax. These 2 will still be good, I guarantee it." Grand Duke Avernathus had stumbled over and parked himself in a fancy chair in the common room. "Well, let's have a pour then, I say." "Don't we have more pressing matters?" asked Demi. "Keep looking around," replied Marius. "Poor man's had a terrible bump to the head. He deserves a drink." Demi nodded and went over to the locked case. "Anyone know how to pick a lock?" she asked. "Oh yeah," said Diyanah. "I'm great with locks. Watch this." He delivered an excellent spin kick to the wooden box with earth-shattering precision, but he bounced off it without causing so much as a dent. "Well, dang, that usually works. Must be, magically treated wood, too." Marius had poured himself and the old Duke a glass of whiskey, and was taking a shot with him. While the others seemed distracted, Demi had found another light panel on the wall, and Aurelius and Diyanah were fiddling with the locked and magically treated cabinet. Marius pulled out the letter that had been addressed to Calbio from his back pocket. It was stained with blood, likely his own from when he'd been stabbed in the back by the assassins at the Senate floor. He gingerly opened it and read, "My boy, Your mother and I are so damn proud of you and everything you've accomplished. Your apprenticeship was the greatest decision we ever made. Watching you grow into a fine man these last 30 years has been the greatest reward life could ever give me. I'm sorry to say that we've kept a secret from you. You always thought we'd tightened our belts to pay for your apprenticeship, and we did, but that was never enough. Eventually we had to take out a mortgage on the farm, and the money you gave us every time you sold a tapestry helped so much, but it was never enough to repay the debt. And now that you're an important man, we'd hoped you could help us settle this mortgage and help us keep the farm, or at least find a space in your new life for two doddering old farmers who love their son. I'm sorry we hid this from you for so long. We love you, Papa. Marius's heart sank as he read these words. He folded the note back up and put it in his pocket. He made a mental note to follow up on this somehow, though he wasn't sure exactly how. Aurelius turned to the group just as Marius had pocketed the note. Diyanah and I aren't getting anywhere with the locked cabinet. Let's just keep moving. Avernathus, you can wait for us here. They followed the door out of the social room down another corridor, this one leading into another room also illuminated by galvanic overhead lights. Heavy wooden bookshelves lined the walls of this opulent chamber. A posh chair sat in the northwestern corner alongside a small circular table. A massive bed and an adjoining table rested along the eastern side of the room. An open bathroom lay to the southwest, with a bathtub that matched the room's opulence, but unfortunately had an old, rancid smell. Aurelius went over to close the door, but as he did so, he spotted a scroll case hanging from the railing of the bathtub. This bronzed and pitted case opened to reveal a tattered note that read, "Fourth bed from the north, duvet, backup key." "Hey, I think we missed a key in the first room," said Aurelius. "I'm going to go check it out." And they all traveled back to the first room to search the fourth bed. Sure enough, a small metal key was hidden in the duvet cover, and when they tried it out on the locked cabinet of the second room, it opened with a click. Inside the locked cabinet was something that resembled an immovable crystal screen built into the wall. The device appeared inoperable, requiring what Demi could only describe as likely a missing power source. "Okay, we'll keep an eye out," said Aurelius. "Let's keep looking." Beyond the richly adorned bedroom was another door. Each of these continued to wind to the right, which led into a fourth room. This room was not illuminated, but rather than further fiddle with the finicky light switches, Aurelius simply cast a light spell to light up the fourth room. This room appeared to be a storage room. It, too, had a secondary door, but this one led back to the first room. The entire complex was a square of 4 rooms separated by corridors. In this last room, stacked wooden crates covered the southern wall, and more crates occupied the northwestern corner. Wooden shelves also filled much of the eastern half of the room, each tier filled with dust-coated bottles, crockery, and glass jars. A more detailed check of the chamber revealed changes of clothes, condiment, pickled vegetables, preserved delicacies, salted meats, and a well-stocked toolkit. So the room was definitively a storage area meant to store excess equipment that the senator or aides would use while spending prolonged periods in the safe quarters. Among the assorted oddities, Aurelius found a few well-crafted throwing knives. The stack of boxes to the south were a mess, but Marius and Diyanah spent some time rearranging them into something less hectic so they could get a better look around. Doing so revealed a beautiful fresco painted on the southern wall of a Taldan hero battling the dwarves of the Five Kings Mountains. A brass plate identified the fresco as Noble Galitian Merrimaxus, hero of the Fourth Army of Exploration, champion of Taldor. "Funny," said Aurelius, looking at the fresco. "I've been doing a lot of talking about the Fourth Army of Exploration for some reason today." He thought about the book Leonardo had given him, and about the fact that the poor man was likely dead in the Senate chamber by now. "This is random," he said, "but I'd love to go and check something." He went over to look at the books in the master bedroom. Despite the Voritas family's clear interest in the Fourth Army, Aurelius did not see many books on the subject in the library. He did find one, however. Not the same book that Leonardo had given him, but a different one, in reasonably good condition. He drew it out of the bookshelf, and it felt strangely heavy to the touch. He opened it, and inside, a chunk had been carved out of the pages, a secret compartment. Inside was a heavy object of cut glass. "Hey, Demi," called Aurelius. "Do you think this could be the power source you were referring to earlier?" Demi came over and looked at the object that Aurelius was turning over in his hand. "Yes," she said. "That looks like a battery, or some similar kind of galvanic power source. It also looks like it would slot in the empty module in the other place. It looks Aslanti-made, elegant, but I think functionally crude. The Voritas family must have been great students of Aslanti design. Let's go give it a try. The group went back to the room where Avernathus was sitting in a comfy chair at the table. He had made his way through about half the bottle of whiskey. "Making good headway towards our escape, I trust?" he asked of Aurelius as the group wandered back in. "The Safehouse is a closed loop, but we found Demi's Aslanti power source thing," explained Aurelius. "You just keep resting. We'll figure it out." "Well, I wasn't planning on getting up," chuckled Avernathus as he poured himself another glass. The gang went over to the crystal screen and slotted the device. The screen activated and showed them a room full of stacked boxes with a tapestry behind it. "Hey, it's some kind of scrying device," said Aurelius. "Looks like it's showing us the storage room for some reason." Just then the lights went out in the storage room. "Did we just do something?" asked Marius. No, I think that was my light spell wearing off. It only lasts for like 20 minutes or so," explained Aurelius. "I'll go give us some more light so we can see better." "No, wait," said Demi. "Look at the screen." They all looked at what Demi was pointing at. When the room was dark, small points of illumination could be seen on the fresco on the back wall. "Huh," said Aurelius. "What do you think that is?" "I don't know, but I'll go check it out and see if I can see the lights in the darkness. If not, call out to me, and let me know where the light points are indicated on the screen." Won't you be bumping around in the dark?" pointed out Aurelius. "No, I won't. Did you notice that I was on my feet in the other room when everyone else was feeling around in the darkness before you arrived? I can see in darkness. It's one of my many cool talents." Aurelius furrowed his brow. Don't take this the wrong way, Demi, but are you a vampire?" Demi made a shocked expression. "I am most certainly not a vampire." Aurelius made a defensive face. "What? You see in the dark? You live forever? You're very cryptic about your past? Seemed like a reasonable guess." "I'll tell you at some point. It's complicated, okay? Just tell me about the lights," said Demi, stalking out of the room. While she was gone, Diyanah added, "No, she's not a vampire. I'd know if she was." "How would you know that?" asked Aurelius. Diyanah polished the red spectacles he always wore and put them back on his face. "Because my glasses are not merely a stylish accessory. They are Death Watch goggles. So useful if you're in a scrap. I can, at a glance, see if something is alive, injured, on death's door, or even if they're undead. Demi is, none of the above? She's not undead, for sure. That's like a black glow around something. According to my glasses, she's kind of alive, but maybe not fully alive. I get like a healthy person glow, but like faded. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. But who doesn't have their secrets, am I right?" Aurelius contemplated deeply. That didn't exactly clear things up for him. Demi's voice called out from the other room. "Hey, I'm in the storage room. The dots only appear on the screen. Can someone call them out, please?" Sure. First light is on his shoulder." Demi tapped the shoulder of Galitian Marimaxus. Wait, no, other shoulder." Demi tapped the other shoulder. "Oh, that did something. The light has disappeared now. Okay, now the pendant on his chest." Demi tapped, and Aurelius saw it wink out. "Okay, now the hilt of his weapon." Same thing. "Now finally, left boot." Demi tapped the left boot, and suddenly she heard the slow grinding of stone on stone. "Hey, secret passageway, everyone," said Demi delightedly. Marius sealed up the half-bottle of whiskey that Avernathus had been drinking and helped the old man up on his feet. The group reached Demi and found themselves looking down a long set of stone steps. On the right hand of the passage was a lantern lit with a continual flame. A majestic tapestry, almost 8 feet in height and a dozen feet wide, featuring once again the majestic image of Galitian of the Fourth Army, hung from the wall along the corridor. Diyanah set down the ever-burning lantern and began to take the tapestry off the wall. What are you doing?" asked Marius. "This is an authentic Fourth Army period tapestry, and it's been sitting here in this musty dungeon all this time. For the right buyer, this could be worth, I don't know, like 500, maybe 1,000 gold pieces?" "Okay, but to Marius's credit, it doesn't seem super portable right now," suggested Aurelius. "Nonsense," said Diyanah, and he rolled up the tapestry until it was a single heavy tube and threw it over his shoulder. He looked like he was carrying a felled log. "Great workout," he said, and he squatted down to pick the lantern back up. "Let's keep going. I'm going to hang on to this piece." Nobody argued, and they kept moving. At the end of the tunnel was a stone wall with a lever. "Another concealed door," and he hefted the lever. With a slow grinding, a portion of the wall raised, revealing a large hall beyond. Before they could soak in their environs, their immediate attention was called to a fresh corpse that was sprawled in the middle of the hall. "That's not a 100-year-old corpse," said Diyanah. "That's a fresh one. He died in the last 10 minutes. "I don't think we need magic glasses to know that," said Aurelius. "Oh, I know him," said Grand Duke Avernathus. "That's a senator. He would have been on the Senate floor as well. He is Lord Devlin Mansham, a loud and cantankerous sort. Though not any more, I'd say." "Do you think he was also wearing some kind of escape pin? But he was killed by the assassins maybe before it rescued him?" asked Aurelius. "Only one way to see," suggested Demi, and she stepped into the room. The hall was maybe 20 feet across, and the corpse was sprawled in the middle of it. The hall also spread 40 or 50 feet to the east and west as well. Chiseled stone statues of Taldan phalanx soldiers stood atop plinths in the outer corners of the hall, visible from all points in the room. At the far east and west, sturdy wooden doors lined the walls, 2 to the east, 2 to the west, and on both sides the hall appeared to wrap around a central room. A single larger door to the north appeared to lead into that room, just across the way beyond the corpse. Demi kneeled down and examined the corpse. She released it and drew her bow. "This man was not stabbed to death," she said. "These are claw wounds and bite marks." A terrible feeling of unease came over the group. Diyanah dropped the lantern and placed the tapestry on the floor. Suddenly, right next to Demi and the corpse, the torso of a humanoid figure with jagged claws extended outwards from the floor, its features patterned with the texture of the structure around it. In an instant it was upon Demi, its slashing claws raking her face and upper body, tearing her beautiful white gala dress to shreds at the shoulder. "More of them," said Marius, as 2 more of the creatures peeled out of the wall behind them. "Now these things are actually undead," said Diyanah, as he rushed forward and delivered a spinning kick to one of the creatures. Marius rushed forward and engaged a 3rd creature. He jinked back and forth, avoiding the creature's slashing claws, and delivered a powerful haymaker to the creature's head. The longer it was parted from the walls, the more clearly it resembled some kind of zombie. Its old, brittle bones seemed to crunch under the impact of his fists, but still its claws lashed out rabidly at him. Aurelius pushed Duke Avernathus behind him. He hadn't saved him from the Senate floor killing, only to lose him now. All 3 of these creatures were occupied with his companions, but Demi, who had been surprise attacked, was the worst for it. With the creature clawing at her and grappling her, she couldn't even effectively use her bow, and in close quarters it was overpowering her. Aurelius had not prepared for a fight, but he had some minor cantrips to contribute. He waved his fingers to form the arcane pattern for acid splash, and then he proceeded to throw darts of acid at the creature, trying to get it off her. From his vantage point he could see that Demi was in a very bad way. The creature appeared to have clawed half of her face off. He thought he could vaguely see bone under the blood, but it gleamed like metal. Suddenly various intricate lights seemed to light up just beneath the uppermost layer of her skin. Slowly but surely Demi appeared to be healing, but not in any way that Aurelius had seen before. As she did so, she opened her mouth and emitted a strange tone that seemed to disturb the undead creatures for a moment. As Aurelius heard the tone, he felt himself grow stronger. He could see it was having the same effect on both Diyanah and Marius, who were suddenly ducking and weaving with greater strength and speed. Aurelius reconsidered his strategy, and wondered if he wouldn't do more damage with a non-magical weapon. He drew a throwing knife from his belt, and threw it as hard as he could at the creature clawing at Demi. It was a perfect hit, right down the center of the creature's skull, almost splitting it in twain. The creature stopped moving and went limp in Demi's arms. By the time Demi got back up on her feet, Aurelius could see the subcutaneous light was fading, and her flesh had almost entirely self-repaired. She had drawn her bow, and began firing arrows at the one Diyanah was fighting. She struck it in the back, causing it to slow slightly. Diyanah took his window. For a brief moment, his fist ignited in flames. "Dragon-style punch!" he cried, and with a terrible pop and hiss, the creature's face exploded in a wreath of flames. Its headless corpse collapsed backwards, still and unmoving. Meanwhile, Marius ducked and weaved around his own foe. He delivered a powerful sweeping kick to the creature's legs and knocked them out from under it. Lying prone, Marius jumped in the air. "Opara-style curb stomp!" he cried, matching Diyanah's war cry, and his booted foot crushed the creature's skull. For a moment it was quiet, and then some of the side doors opened up on both the west and east side. Coming from a western safe room, a nobleman with a thick red beard was the first to approach. "Thank you, brave warriors," he said. "We fled to the adjoining rooms when these creatures attacked us, and locked ourselves inside. Poor Lord Mansham perished before we could get to safety. I am Senator Wilfin Buttholes, and these are my colleagues and fellow survivors, Sir Griffiths Plastian and Lady Gale Urbane." "I know who you all are," muttered Lord Avernathus. "This is my brave pupil, Lord Aurelius Betinos, and he and his companions will see us to safety. Have no fear. Grand Duke Avernathus, "It is a pleasure to see you made it out of the Senate floor safely," said Lord Wilfin, bowing deeply as he recognized the old man. Another 3 figures were approaching from the other side of the hall. Marius, Diyanah, and Demi immediately recognized one of the 3 figures. It was Dame Melfine Trant. Along with her were a halfling dressed in servant's garb and a human cleric of Mwangi heritage. Melfine immediately drew her rapier. "Not you lot. You all are nothing but bad news." She turned to the other lords and added, "My lords, these ruffians enchanted me and my friends during the gala. They were probably responsible for the Senate massacre as well. We cannot trust them." "We only did that because you were bullying Senator Duo into changing his vote," said Demi. "You are a witch," she said. "Don't be silly," said Demi. "I'm a bard, and you were fine, weren't you? You were the one smarting for a fight. I saved you a beating at the hands of my friends." Aurelius could see that Melfine was shaking with anger, and something else probably as well. Grief, it looked like to him. He also recalled that Martella had said that Melfine's father had been a senator. He put a hand on Demi's shoulder and gently urged her to let him speak. Demi stepped back, and Aurelius addressed Melfine, who was still waving the blade at them. "My name is Aurelius," he said. "I wasn't there during the altercation, but I promise you we had nothing to do with the attack on the Senate. We all had to watch while we lost loved ones too. We're in this together. If we're going to survive, we all need to set politics aside and be on the same side for a moment." Melfine dropped her sword and stepped away. The cleric turned to her. "Should I?" "Go on, Zubari. He's probably right. They look like they need healing." The cleric came over and cast healing spells on those who had gotten scuffed up in the fight with the stone zombie creatures. Lord Wilfred Bottles addressed the group again. "I think these safe houses we've ended up in are the Senate protection chambers, built many centuries ago, and not used in at least 100 years. I believe they are beneath the Senate building, but as they've been sealed for over a century, they may well be crawling with other dangers." Yes, said Grand Duke Avernathus. "I had suspected the same. And if I may add," continued Bottles, "we are but humble bureaucrats, while you are brave men and women of action. I think we would be willing to offer you a reward if you would do us the kindness of allowing us to rest here while you secure the rest of the chambers and find us a safe exit path." "What kind of reward are we talking about?" "Say 300 gold pieces to each of you that assist." Bottles looked around for consensus from his fellow nobles. "That makes it 100 from each of us." "Make that 400, and please keep an eye out on our friend Avernathus," said Diyanah, seating him with the other nobles. Yes, quite fair. I can certainly kick in as well," he agreed. "Though I'd ask if you can leave that bottle of whiskey behind." Marius rolled his eyes and uncorked it for him and poured out a few glasses. This seemed to immediately put all the senators in a good mood, despite the fact that only a few feet away the corpse of their fellow senator was still lying clawed up on the ground. "And what about your group?" asked Aurelius of Dame Melfine. I can fight. Cleric Zubari is with me. He's been in my family for generations. I don't know the halfling." Zubari leaned in close to Aurelius and said, "The dame just watched her father killed in front of her. She was only a few steps away as he died. She is in no state to fight." Aurelius nodded. "You should speak to her then." Zubari and Melfine Trant had a private conversation. They spoke in hushed but animated tones. Diyanah approached the halfling while those two were discussing. This gave Aurelius a chance to talk privately to Demi for a moment. "Hey, what I just saw right there, when you were injured." "More of my special talents," said Demi simply. "Yes, I just wanted to say I think I understand. I try to be well read on a variety of topics, and I've come across some references to your kind." "Is that so?" she said. "You're from Numeria, aren't you?" he asked. She stiffened visibly. He continued undeterred. "The Numerian Kelids, they refer to your kind as the tattooed children of the stars. Your kind came from another world." She seemed unwilling to talk for a moment. Then she said, "Yes, that's what I am. We call ourselves androids. You should know that in my country the Kelids hunt us down and kill us wherever they can, while another faction, the faction that controls our country, dissects or lobotomizes us and turns us into their slaves. The Technic League they are called, and they are far-reaching and dangerous, which is why I prefer not to talk about my home." "Well then, your secret is safe with me," promised Aurelius. Meanwhile, Diyanah was catching up with the halfling. "So, who might you be?" he asked with authority. "My lord, I'm Emistos Gullbend, but a humble servant of the office of the Senate." "Well, I can tell that from the serving staff clothes you wear," said Diyanah. "How did you end up here, though?" "I've no idea, my lord." "Well, I think I have an inkling," he said, plucking an aid badge from the halfling's chest. If you are not a senatorial aide, how did you come by this aide badge? Oh, that. I think in the chaos, I don't know, I maybe picked it up. On accident, of course. Ha! A likely story, said Diyanah. But fear not. You can make up for your wayward behavior in service to me, Lord Diyanah of House Frascati. I have an important assignment for you. Put out your arms. The halfling did as he was told. Diyanah walked over to where he had laid down the tapestry. Here, hold on to this. It's a crucially important and very old piece of art. Guard it with your life, if you have to. Marius almost interceded and said something as he watched the small halfling struggle with the enormous tapestry, but he often struggled to comment on Taldor's inequities when he was presented with them. Instead, he ignored this and approached Melfin and Zubari. Are you two coming with us? Zubari replied, I will accompany you. You may need the healing. Lady Melfin will remain behind with the other nobles. Melfin gripped Zubari's arm. Please be safe, she said. I don't trust them. If anything goes wrong, I will call on you with whispering wind, okay? We'll be safe. Melfin nodded. She turned to Marius. If anything happens to him, you answer to me. Diyanah also approached, accompanied by the halfling servant. Emistos will be accompanying us as my personal porter, announced Diyanah. Emistos, try not to get yourself killed, please, and keep the tapestry safe. Yes, my lord. Suddenly, the pins on their chests blazed to life. Aurelius, Demi, Diyanah, and Marius all heard the voice of Lady Martella Lothide by magical telepathy. I hope you're all safe wherever the badges took you. Gloriana Marilla's allies from the Pathfinder Society came to secure us a way out of the Senate building. The princess and I are both still alive and fighting. We are now out of the Senate, but Stavian soldiers are in pursuit. There is fighting throughout the entire Senate building. Wherever you are, keep your heads down. Once again, I'm unpinning my badge to avoid abandoning the princess. I will call again when we have reached safety. The missive faded away. Well, that's some good news, said Aurelius. Let's get ourselves to safety too. End of chapter. Thank you so much for watching. That was episode 3 of my Pathfinder 616 War for the Crown series. In this particular adventure, our heroes had to go through something similar to an escape room. So this is a moment in an RPG where the players are confronted with a puzzle of some kind. This seems like an interesting topic of conversation from a GM standpoint, because essentially in an adventure like this, you really want to let the players puzzle it out for themselves, because there is some intrinsic reward to solving the puzzle. On the other hand, you also don't want to let your players get frustrated. So in an adventure like this, what I tend to do is I let them bump their head against the wall for a little bit, and then if it feels like they're not making progress, I slip them clues. So you might have noticed, for example, in this particular recap, that there was a moment where Aurelius decided to go and look in the bookcase. That was a little bit of GM nudging on my part, because I think we were getting to a point where they needed to find the power source for the device, and there was no obvious reason to look in the bookcase. And so the gentle reminder that this group was interested in the Fourth Army and that he had done something with the Fourth Army previously helped him connect some dots and go and look in the bookcase. In any case, know that with an adventure like this, your mileage will vary. So obviously, if your players love puzzles, give them all the time in the world. If your players don't like puzzles, give them more clues and help them get to the fun stuff like crunching zombie skulls. Hope you enjoyed this video. That's all I got for you today. I will see you next time in a couple of weeks for episode 4.